the Koalition. Pleasure to speak to you, fellow Dana.
It's so nice to see you, fellow Dana.
Thank you. This season was so much fun. And what I love is that you present a much larger picture than what we saw in season 1. So for season 2, I was wondering, was that always the intent?
You know, I think for us, the big challenge was people really loved season 1, which was amazing, but it was also kind of a lot of pressure because it was like, oh my God, well, what did they love about it? Why did they love it? You know, and you sort of try to analyze it and really figure out what it is that people liked about it. You try to then say, what do I like about it? What do we as writers like about it? What kind of a story do we want to tell? What do we care about? And I think for us, it was fundamentally about finding a mystery that felt as emotional as the one in season 1, but that made the world feel bigger and made it feel like Hilde had more adventures ahead of her, and that she and her friends were going to uncover all sorts of crazy stuff in this town, and kind of make it feel like almost a more sophisticated, bigger show, a bigger, more adult show, something that takes on bigger issues, but still does it in the fundamentally sort of home before darky way, where it's bingey. You really want to know what happens next, but you also can't help getting really swept up in the emotions of it, because that's sort of what I love about it too, is that it's an emotional mystery and not just a plot-driven mystery.
Right. Is that between father and daughter? And for this one, it kind of seems like he allowed himself to kind of be free and to roam, but they kind of have a really closer connection this season. And so what I love is the mental state that we see him in, where it's father compared to the child, father, vice versa. Can you talk a little bit importance of the dynamic and why you still continue to focus on Hilde, even though is going so much as well?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, I think for me, the father-daughter relationship is so important in this show. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't also shortchanging the rest of the family and the other characters. I was really excited to sort of see what Tripp's story was going to be once she became sheriff. Like, that's such fertile ground to talk about interesting things and to get to know her better and see who she is, you know, and discover who the mom is, who Izzy is, get deeper on all of these characters. But fundamentally, you know, we all loved that it had this very core, intense father-daughter relationship at the center of it. And I think, you know, one of the things I love about it is it's not like normal family shows. You know, the father-daughter scenes where they talk to each other, it's not like, you know, hey, Scout, how was your school day today? Are you done with your homework? You know, it's like, it has nothing to do with that. It's literally like they're both incredibly passionate about journalism. And I think one of the things I thought was really cool to see, and thank God Sturgis is such a good actor, is that, you know, he knows fundamentally that sometimes to be a good journalist is to be a bad father, and to be a good father is sometimes to be a bad journalist. And so to watch the push-pull of that was really interesting to me, because it's not something I think I've ever seen before, and I was really excited to explore it. Does that answer your question? Oh, Dana. Okay, good.
Yeah, it does answer the question. We see the text. And I was wondering, what was the reason behind that? Because there's so many that would be small mystery.
I don't know if this is going on my end or your end, but I'm having a little trouble hearing you, to the point where, like, I almost got enough words to understand what your question was, but not quite. Can you guys hear her okay? Sean, can you hear her okay? Or is this a problem on my end?
No, Sean, that's happening for me too.
Yeah, no, it's
okay if we try Dana with camera off, because sometimes that helps. Is that all right? Or Dana, are you recording on your side too? Dana A, of course. Can you hear us?
I love you and I miss you.
Yeah.
I'm so sad.
All right, Dana, give it a try now.
Oh goodness. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, so much better.
Okay. I was wondering, for this season, you tackle corporate greed. And this also, it brings a larger world to the show. So I was wondering, what was the intent behind that, instead of keeping it like a small town mystery?
You know, for me, I was really just interested in that on a personal level, to be honest with you, because I grew up in an area in Rochester, New York, where, you know, when I became an adult and I was getting ready to have kids, I developed like crazy infertility, and I had to have 7 IVFs. I had a couple miscarriages. And what they said to me at the time was, you know, for someone who's as healthy as you are, all of your eggs are like scrambled genetically. It's unclear why, but when we see people with these cases, it's almost always environmental. It's something that they were exposed to in their lifetime. And so we talked about it, and they believe that maybe it happened where I grew up, and it was close to a company that was using a bunch of chemicals and was sort of dumping a bunch of those chemicals in the water and in sort of the air around where I grew up. And that was a really emotional mystery that I sort of had to solve for myself as an adult. And that was weirdly kind of the starting point of how we got to, I think I remember correctly that was kind of where we started talking about season 2, was like, okay, well, what if there is something that's profoundly personal, but what it leads to is the discovery of a much bigger cover up of something that affects a lot more people besides just the one person that it starts with. So it was kind of an exploration of that. And, you know, we had such a good bad guy in season 1 in Sheriff Briggs, who is Lewis Hertham, who I absolutely adore. And, you know, I was kind of interested in the things that we changed about season 2 that made it a challenge in a good way. You know, is that, for example, Tripp is the sheriff. So all of a sudden Hilde used to have this big sort of villain in the police force, and that was why she couldn't get information. And now her good friend is the sheriff, and so shouldn't she just be able to walk in and get information from Tripp? And so then we had to sort of explore, well, no, she can't, because that's a conflict of interest for Tripp. And so Tripp has to sort of pull away from Hilde, and what does that mean to their relationship? And then in terms of just the corporate malfeasance side of it, it felt like an interesting sort of bad guy to be able to kind of go wider with it than just one guy in the police department who had some secrets. So it felt like a really good way to make the show feel bigger and sort of more intense.
Wonderful. And lastly, I know that you guys had to pause because of the whole pandemic situation. Was that time used to kind of refinesse everything to really get down the locations, or was you guys just ready to shoot?
Oh my God, my friend. I was just like, okay, I'm going to take a nap. Like, I was like, I need a nap. This is crazy. I have 3 young children under the age of 8. And so they were all like suddenly homeschooling in the house while I was trying to finish the scripts. And I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? So it was completely bananas, as I'm sure it was for other people. But we obviously came to just feel like anytime we were healthy, that we were the luckiest people on earth. So, you know, I was able to take a little bit of extra time to finish up the scripts, but frankly, I think we were on 209 when we shut down. I mean, in terms of scripts, we had only shot 3 episodes, but we had at least 9 scripts. So there wasn't too much left to finish. It's just that, you know, when I suddenly started homeschooling 3 kids, I had a little bit less time. So it was that initial couple of weeks where I think all of our heads were spinning, and we were all trying to figure out, like, who are we going to be in this new world order? And as with most things in my life, whenever something bad happens, I always try to really focus back on work, because it's the thing that I feel like makes me feel the most me. So I did that. And once I did that, I was able to be an even better parent to my kids. And, you know, it was a really cool challenge to come back up, and Vancouver did really well. They were very, very smart about the way they handled it. And so we were able to come back, and we were able to follow all these wonderful safety protocols that had been put in place, and we were able to do the whole thing safely. And I think everybody felt so happy and lucky and grateful that we were able to get back to work. Because I think, you know, you only have to have it all taken away from you for you to realize how much you love it and how much you need it. And I think all of the